Thank you for joining me, Joe. So what do you do and how long have you been working in the education sector for?
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the series, James. I've really enjoyed watching it so far. I'm the Education Sector Director at Reds 10. For those that don't know Reds 10, we're a main contractor. We specialise in off-site construction. We have a team dedicated to the education sector, and I oversee that team. We've got 13 live schools. Currently, we've got 6 in construction, 7 at pre-construction, and we actually delivered 4 schools last year. We work for local authorities, we work directly for schools and trusts, and we work for the Department for Education through their MMC1 framework. We've also recently started to get involved in providing temporary accommodation in response to the RAC crisis. I've been in the sector for around 6 years. I've been with Reds 10 for 3.5 years. Before that, I actually worked consultancy side. So I worked for Arcadis for 6 years before Reds 10. Did various things at Arcadis, but 3 years there was dedicated to the education sector, working as a technical advisor on the DFE framework. So on the DFE account, so working on Free Schools Programme, the old Priority Schools Building Programme. I guess I'm quite unusual in the sense that I'm a consultant that's moved to the contracting world. So I've actually seen things from both sides of the fence, which has been quite an interesting journey.
Probably very well placed to look after the delivery and so forth in the team. And in terms of the team, how many people do you have in the team at the moment at Reds 10, kind of looking after the education sector there?
So we've got a team of around 40 purely dedicated to the sector. So that comprises construction directors, operation managers, project managers, QS, commercial managers, and design managers. That's a core team working across let's say that portfolio of 13 jobs that we've currently got.
In terms of as a wider business, how important is the education sector in terms of Red 10's offering, and which other sort of sectors do you sort of cover as a business?
Education is an absolute cornerstone of our business. It's where the business started. The business first started doing temporary buildings, temporary school buildings, and we then progressed into permanent buildings. Now we are operating across the public estates. We're working in healthcare, we're working in defence. We've just recently secured quite a large framework with the Defence Infrastructure Organisation, and we're working in justice as well. So revenue, education accounts for a third of our revenue.
That's a real success story, and congratulations to you and your sort of colleagues. And I guess it leads on to sort of my next question. I think you kind of alluded to earlier. So which projects are you most proud of and why in terms of what you delivered at Reds 10 recently?
It's quite an easy one to answer. It's Pathway School in Dagenham. So it's an all-through SEMH school. The reason I'm so attached to it is because I actually did the feasibility study, Reba Stage 0 and Reba Stage 1 at Arcadis, and then joined Reds 10, and Reds 10 actually were appointed to do the build. So I've actually been on that project literally from day one all the way through to handover and into operation and aftercare. And the reason why it's such a special project is there were 2 distinct challenges. The first one was the site. It was the old, I don't know if you're familiar with it, the old former Ford stamping factory in Dagenham, famous factory in Ford factory in Dagenham. There was films about it. So it's a brownfield site on the old former Ford factory, and there was every possible issue on this site. There was terrible ground conditions. There was a high water table. Levels fell from 1 to 5 meters across the site. It was in a flood zone 3. There was archaeological issues. There was fuel tanks in the ground covered in asbestos. There was absolutely everything. This site threw everything at us. But in addition to that, there was challenges around the specific pupil cohort. It's an SEMH school, and the school were in temporary accommodation, and the pupils were prone to violent outbursts. So it was really important that the building was robust, and there was loads of additional measures that we had to put into that building to make it robust, above severe duty rated plasterboard, toughened glass. We had to really make the doors robust with additional hinges and extra strength maglocks. So it was, as I say, a real theme of robustness going through that building. And we delivered it. The school moved in last October. What the success story is that since they've moved from their temporary accommodation that was completely unfit for purpose, they've now moved into the new building and they've actually improved their Ofsted score, which is an absolute success story.
Sounds like a great project, and do check it out on the Res 10 website. I'm sure it's there, and in this chat we'll put a link to it as well. In terms of my next question, sort of, what do you think the biggest challenges the sector faces in the near and long term, and why?
I've got a two-pronged response to that around education and construction. So there just are not enough young people coming into construction. We've got an aging workforce, and we've got a skills gap. In my role, James, I go into a lot of schools, I go into a lot of colleges, and I speak with young people, and they're just not interested in joining construction. They want to pursue careers in business and finance and law, and it's a real issue. There's this, I think it was the Chartered Institute of Building that published a stat recently that we need another 250,000 construction workers in the next 5 years to service current demand. And if you look at the education estate, there's so much work that needs doing. You've got issues with racket. We've not got enough SEMH spaces. Old buildings are crumbling, and there's so much work to be done. And the same could be said for healthcare and defence and justice. And all these public sector clients are competing with a finite pool of resources. It's a real challenge, and trying to get young people into the industry is something we all need to look at.
And I guess on the flip side, then, so what are the biggest opportunities the sector faces, or has actually, and why?
There is an opportunity to go out there and get young people interested in construction again. We've got to break down. There's a few stigmas and stereotypes attached to construction. Then we've got to promote the different roles in construction. It's not just about being on site. We've got to encourage and I think incentivize different routes into construction. Things like T-levels, apprenticeships, degree apprenticeships. I've actually got a recent success story. So last year I had a young man join us who he did his T-levels placement with us, and he's completed his T-levels and he's now joined us full time as a degree apprentice doing quantity surveying. So I think there's we've got to be promoting different routes into construction. I think there's a real, look from the Red 10 perspective, there's a real opportunity to industrialise the construction of education buildings, to improve productivity, to address that skills gap. Things like standardising school designs, sub-assemblies, design for manufacture and assembly. Increased off-site construction can help with that productivity and help us deliver more efficiently and more effectively. There's a lot of really good work going on in the defence space at the moment around DFMA and alliancing, and I really think the education sector could learn quite a bit from what's going on over in defence.
Now, we mentioned, and you've spoken a little bit earlier about your work in sort of SEND and SEMH schools. Could you tell me a bit more about that and the work you're currently doing with SEND and SEMH schools, please?
So we're really starting to gather pace in this space and develop expertise around it. Last year we built 4 SEMH, SEND schools, full school builds. We've got another 5 currently on site and in design. And what's been really interesting over that period, we've had exposure to a whole range of specific pupil needs. It's been really interesting to see, how our design responds to those needs. Things like robustness and even things like colour schemes, the types of spaces that are provided, fixtures and fittings. But I think what's really interesting is 4 of those schools are now in operation. They've been in operation for over a year. We're now starting to go in and do our post-occupancy evaluations, and we've been doing those in collaboration with the DFE and with our architects. It's really interesting to get some of the feedback from the staff on how those spaces are being used, what's working well, what's not working so well. And at Res 10, we're kind of capturing that data and now feeding it back into the design of the next wave of schools that we're doing for the DFE. I won't say too much on it, James. I am doing a presentation on this at Education Estates in October, so I don't want to steal my own thunder.
You're speaking on day 2, and for those that are going to be at Education Estates and are watching this, do head along and hear Joe speak. Now, if I may, I'm going to ask you some questions about Education Estates. Sort of in your opinion, what do you think attendees would get out of coming to an event like Education Estates, and I guess hearing your presentation as well?
Look, it's the main education event of the year. And I personally get excited when October comes around. From a contractor perspective, it's just a really great way to network with new and existing suppliers, clients, and peers. I think I've been for the last 3 years now, James, and every time I've come away with new client opportunities, new suppliers, and new consultants, architects, engineers, etc., that I can use on our projects. I think I would encourage people to go and see the presentations and listen to the discussions that are happening around the space. It's a really good way to keep on top of current issues and innovation that's happening in the education sector. In terms of the talks, I've got 2 talks on the Wednesday. The first one is going to be on the SEMH school that I mentioned earlier, Pathways. We've been in there and we've done our post-occupancy evaluations, and there's loads of learning from that we want to share with the audience. I'm going to be sharing a stage with our architect, HLM Architects, as well as the deputy head. And my other talk is around so obviously Redstone have been on the FE framework for four years now. That framework has come to an end, and it's been quite a journey for us in terms of the way that we've standardized our school products and the way that we're increasing pre-manufactured value and basically the learning and innovation that we've taken across almost 15 jobs with the DFE. So I'm also going to be doing a talk on that as well on the Wednesday.
Thank you for those kind words. And as I mentioned earlier, if you're there, day 2, do check out Joe and his colleagues' chats and do visit them on the stand. In terms of your stand, what will you be showcasing on the stand at Education Estates, and why should attendees pop by and say hello to you and your team?
We've got a new stand this year. Looks great. We're going to have a VR experience. We're going to have a VR headset, and people can come and walk around virtually a primary school that we recently delivered in Nottingham. I think what I want to showcase with that is there's sometimes a bit of a stigma attached to modular construction. The buildings don't look great, or they're not unique. But by using this VR experience, delegates people can see that our buildings just look the same as traditional buildings. I'm also bringing along one of our degree apprentice students. I've been speaking on this on this interview about the benefits of T-levels and degree apprenticeships, and it's all well and good me speaking about it, but I'm going to bring one of our degree apprentices, and he's going to be on our stand. So if people want to come and hear firsthand benefits of that route into the industry, then come along and speak to us. We're at stand 221.
And that's exactly where it is. It's right in the heart of the show by the Department for Education, by the design, construction, delivery stage. And I look forward to seeing the new stand that you've got and seeing a sort of a buzz of activity over the 2 days. Now, so as you said, you've had quite a distinguished and an interesting career in the education sector. But for those that know you or those that necessarily might not know you, could you share something with the audience that they might not already know about you, Joe?
The ordinary, James. I think recently I've become quite an avid cyclist, as is half the nation now, I think. But for the past few years, I've really got into my cycling and been doing a lot of long distance charity cycling events. So last year a group of us, we cycled from Vienna to Budapest. A couple of months ago, a group of us cycled, it's called Ride London. So that was from London to Essex and back in a day. That was 101 miles. And in 4 weeks' time, there's a group of us cycling 300 miles over 3 days from Copenhagen to Berlin, which I am horrendously unprepared for. So the next 4 weeks, there's going to be some serious preparation for that. But the charities that we've been doing that for are Crash and Talent Foundry. So anyone interested, I would recommend they go and check them out.
And the Talent Foundry are our chosen charity for the Education Estates awards this year, and I know you're doing that with Dave Wood and others from the sector. So good luck on that ride, Joe. Thank you so much for joining me. As I say, do pop by and see Joe and his team at Education Estates. So no, thank you, and take care.
Thanks for having me. Cheers.